Lovely. We are about to get started. So I'm just gonna give 1 or 2 more minutes. Suppose I'm still trying to jump on, just gonna give 1 or 2 minutes, and then we're gonna also extend the stream to our YouTube audience. All right. All right. So we can prepare now to get started and get this show on the road. We got quite a lot to cover tonight. Tonight, I'm gonna work and do my best to keep it under before 9 o'clock. We're gonna finish. Right? That's gonna be my plan for tonight. So welcome one, welcome all to another of our Evesham Sda Health Sunday night service, where we come on every single Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. and we look at different topics as it relates to health and reversing diseases naturally. We use primarily laws of health as taught by Ellen G. White and also the Bible. That's going to be our primary sources, and we're going to take our time and build from there. So before we begin, let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Dear Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We want to thank you, Lord, for the privilege of being here another Sunday night. We want to thank you, Lord, for the message. We want to thank you, Lord, for this ministry. We want to thank you, Lord, for blessing it. And I want to thank you for all of the amazing weeks that we have had every Sunday night out here. Thank you for holding the internet. Thank you for holding the presenters and helping us to be able to come out and share this information. As we go into tonight's service, we ask that you be with all of the audience, with all of the listeners. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So we are going to kick this one off again. And of course, let me get my screen up. We got to set the background so that we know exactly what is going on here. And tonight we're looking at the reversing acid reflux naturally. Now, I know a lot of persons struggle with acid reflux, and so I wanted to put this in there because as we have been doing those ones from from Dr. Dian, we realize that digestive health is at the core of many of the issues. And if digestive health is out of whack, then we do realize that we are going to have some issues when it comes to improving other health conditions. Now, I'm sure you've also heard that the gut is also part of the immune system. So if the gut balance is off, it means the immune system is off. The gut is also called the second brain, and so we have a lot that the gut plays part of in terms of our bodily functions, even in hormonal balance, muscle preservation, immune system, the ability to fight off diseases, and even weight loss to an extent. So if that gut is off, a lot of issues are going to be off. So I know one of the issues that affects the gut is acid reflux. A lot of persons struggle with acid reflux. And so I want to take my time because the actual original presentation was acid reflux, GERD, and all of them into one. But I wanted to take my time and pull them out, flesh them out one by one, and break this thing down piece by piece. So I'm going to be jumping between slides because we have a couple slides here. And so I want to make sure that all of the information is properly distributed and understood. And more importantly, the application is going to be there. So when you finish, you can take one thing. I don't want to take away everything, but if you could just take away one thing from it and apply that into your life and help to reverse acid reflux. So we're gonna have some fun here tonight. And what I'll do, I'll open at the end to take some questions specifically about your issue, things that you may be having when it relates to this, and then we'll also take our time and flesh it out. All right. So that being said, don't forget to invite someone on here tonight. Remember, that is your goal. You always, whenever we send out the link, you share it with someone because as you are getting the benefit of the free information, they might also want the benefit. And so that we will kind of spiral and make sure everybody gets the benefit. All right. So now that we have that preface set, let us bring the screen up and I'm going to do my best to make some time for the questions. All right. So let's get this going. All right. Let me zoom that in there. And if you're seeing the screen, just give me a one in the chat. Give me a one in the chat if you're seeing the screen properly so that I can make sure that we have everything set up and good to go. All right, so just give me a one in the chat if you guys are seeing the screen and we're going to go from there. I know some persons are still trying to go on, so let me just pull my phone and make sure they have the link because the last time some persons were having some issues getting the link. So let me just make sure that they are taken care of because they are part of the faithful audience And let me just put that there. All right. So we are there. What does the chat say? The chat says we are seeing the screen. Excellent. Excellent. Lovely. So disclaimer, this webinar is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. Now that's just a mandatory disclaimer that we have to state whenever you're doing these sort of webinars. So that is out of the way. Now, we teach primarily from 4 sources, and that is the Bible, the inspired writings. When we talk about the inspired writings, we're talking about the inspired writings of Sister Ellen G. White. Good science lines up with both of the above, and then 4 is going to be experience. One of the key texts we always like to start this thing off, I know for those of you who have been on here religiously and consistently every single Sunday night would probably learn this by heart. It's taken from Exodus 15 and verse 26. And the Lord said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put not these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. So the Lord is the healer, and he promised, as long as you do your part in the healing process, then he will ensure that you have none of these diseases upon you. Now, this is a very important part, eh? This is a very important part. And I heard it mentioned in a seminar we had last Saturday at the church. And this is something, I know you guys on here are not guilty of that, but I just want to bring it to the forefront. You know, some persons, they would not be living the healthiest of lifestyle. They will be eating what they want, when they want, rejecting exercise, avoiding sunlight, working consistently away from fresh air, and then when they are diagnosed with a sickness, what do they say? I rebuke you in Jesus' name. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that is some level of presumption. You are not doing your part in ensuring that you keep the tabernacle holy. I'm not discrediting the power of Jesus, right? And that is not the point of this debate. But if you look throughout the Bible, let's use the same Bible because, of course, it's one of our sources. Type it in the chat for me. What does the Bible describe the body as? Knowing not that your body is a what? Let me see it in the chat. We're engaging tonight. Let's start this thing off right. Because this would also lead into everything as we have to say tonight. Knowing not that your body is a what? Let me see it in the chat. Let me see it in the chat. I know I have my Bible scholars on here, so drop it in the chat. What does the Bible say your body is? Marina, you are spot on. Your body is a temple. All right. So maybe any part of the world that we are at, temple might not be a very familiar term. And if you're in Trinidad, you're probably familiar with it. So let's use a word that we're all familiar with. Your body is a church. Now, what is a church? A church is a place where we go to meet with God. Now, most of us here go to church or our religious building, right? Now, in your religious building, when you go there, is there trash on the floor? Are the floors unmopped? Is there dust? Is there moss on the windows? Are the pipes not working? No. Why? Because each and every temple, each and every church have someone or a group of people that is responsible for what? Ensuring that the temple, the church is always clean. Why do you think they do that? It is a holy place. And as a holy place, yes, we come there to get recharged spiritually. Yes, we come there to get recharged and clean spiritually, but we also have to keep it physically clean and in pristine conditions. And when things go down, what they do? They fix them, or if they can't be fixed, it is replaced. Now, taking that trend logic into this argument, the same Bible says that your body is a what? A temple. So your body is a church. And from the physical church, the physical temple, we see that there is great effort and expense put forth to ensure that the place of worship is the best of the best. Okay. If your body is also a place of worship, if your body is also a place where you meet with the Creator God, because it's a witnessing tool too, shouldn't that same effort, energy, and expense be placed in keeping your temple in pristine condition? That is the question on the floor tonight. And I know that you will all agree with me emphatically, yes. So you have your part to do. And as we get to some of the slides, you will see exactly how this thing lines up. In this world, the world that we are living in, is called Earth. In this place, we have certain natural laws that we are guided by. One of those laws is the law of cause and effect. If you take your hand and put it in fire, you will get burned. Why? Because your hand is over a heated surface, and as a result, you will get burned. If you dehydrate or if you stop drinking water, you will get dehydrated. If the sun stops shining, the plants will die. We will not have food. Cause, effect. Now, modern medicine, and to an extent, modern theology, or even modern way of thinking, we normally focus on the effect without understanding the cause. Which brings us to this principle. Foundation principle number 1. The causeless shall not come. What does that mean? There is no such thing as a curse. Another word we could use for curse is effect. You do not get disease. You do not get these things without some cause. So the causeless, there's no such thing as a causeless curse. There's no such thing as a causeless disease. There's no such thing as a causeless sickness. There's no such thing as a causeless pain. For you to experience pain, sickness, disease in your life, there has to be a cause. Foundation principle. It's right there in the Bible. Okay. Now, another of my favorite books. This is a book I will encourage everyone to get. It's called Ministry of Healing, and it's taken from page number 127. Now, if you're probably asking, where can I get this book? It is available at a store called the IADPA, Inter-American Publishing Division Association. You can find it in every single country in the Caribbean and in the US. Get your hands on the book, The Ministry of Healing. If I want to recommend some books for you, the first one will be The Ministry of Healing. In fact, I think I have a copy here. Let me just stretch and grab that copy so you can see what it looks like. Right? Right. I am back. This is the book, The Ministry of Healing. If you're really, really serious about your health, serious about reversing diseases, serious about living your best life, get yourself a copy of this book. It's very inexpensive. The Ministry of Healing. A lot of the principles that we teach here you can find in this book. If you're serious and you really want to dive deep into nutrition and really understand how you can use foods to heal diseases, get this book. It's called Counselors and Diets and Food. Both of them are written by Sister Ellen G. White. Right? Very powerful book. Now, this book, The Ministry of Healing, it says, disease never comes without a cause. Now, we say we teach from 4 sources. Source number 1 was the Bible, lines up with the inspired writing. So both of them are in effort saying the same thing. Now let's bring this thing to practicality. Acid reflux never comes without a cause. Follow me so far? Lovely. Now, what is disease? And it may seem a little bit repetitive that I say these things over and over again, but it's very important because what this is going to do for you, first of all, it's going to give you hope. What do you mean you're going to give me hope, Coach Jason? Well, think about it. If every single condition in your life, tonight we're looking at acid reflux, last few weeks we look at hormonal imbalances, menopause, and all of these issues. If all of these have a cause, it means that as long as you can identify the cause, you can reverse the disease. Simple. Now, we are taught that there are some things as incurable diseases. I do not believe that. I do not subscribe to that. I believe all diseases have a cure. Because if all disease have a cause, it means that as long as we take away the cause, then the cure must follow. Right? Simple laws of cause and effect. So what is disease? It says here, Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. Now, I've highlighted some words here. The first one is disease. The next one is to free the system, conditions, violation, laws of health. So this one is working from effect backward to cause. So the effect is the disease. The cause is the laws of health, and specifically the violation. Let's look at it. Now, if you look at this specific image that I have here, you would see on the far right of my screen, there is a little guy here, and his name is called what? Disease. All right. So this fella is called disease. Now, according to our definition, it says that disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from the violation of the laws of health. Now, before disease, what comes? Type it in the chat. It's right on the screen. What comes before disease? According to this, what comes right after disease? Let me see it in the chat. We're going to take our time and we're going to work this thing. We're going to pull this thing. We're going to flesh this thing out. And so at the end, you will have a working definition and you'll understand how disease comes upon your body. So what comes before disease according to this? That is correct. A freeing of the system, or we just, for ease of words, we'll put system freeing. And let me just take a quick look here. Marina, that is correct. Marina, you're on the ball tonight. You're on the ball. Right. So come on, guys. Let's get our hands on the chat. Now, what is the system freeing itself from? Conditions. Stop. Stick a pin. Let's pause here, Natasha. Now, this is where typically the medical system stops. Certain conditions appear in the body. What are some conditions? Higher than normal blood pressure numbers. So you're now reading 150 over 100. Higher than normal blood sugar readings. You're reading 150, 200 when you take your glucose readings. What are some conditions? A burning in the throat. We are dealing with acid reflux. These are some of the conditions that we have. Headaches, conditions. Chest pain, conditions. Lip cramps, conditions. Joint pains, conditions. All these are conditions. What is wrong? I want somebody to put it in the chat. What is wrong if we just treat the conditions? What is wrong with that? Let me see the answers in the chat. If we just deal with the conditions, what is wrong with that? Let me see in the chat. I'm going to give you guys some time. You see, we did this specific slide a couple times well, but we never really took our time and flesh it out. So we're doing that tonight. So if we just stop right here at conditions, we see a headache, we give a pain medication. We see a joint pain, we give a pain medication. We see higher than normal blood sugar readings, we just give insulin metformin to bring the blood sugar down. We have high blood pressure, we give statin drugs. What is wrong with that? It cannot repair. It can reappear if not dealt with the root cause. Marina, you're on the ball. You are on the ball. If we look at the definition, these conditions appeared because there was a violation of what? The laws of health. So then the question must be asked, Marina, Judy, what are the laws of health? And they are beautifully listed here. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. Now, what do you notice about all of these laws of health? Number one, they are free. Number two, they are available in every country that is represented here tonight. Number three, they are accessible to all. Right. So now that we have that, we're going to take our time and we're going to pull this thing apart. So we are looking tonight at acid reflux. And correct, Coach Judy, they are natural. If we are dealing with acid reflux, that is what we are going to be looking at tonight. And I have a couple of slides here. Let me just put this up. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth. Now, this is something I want you guys to understand. In your stomach, as it happens with every single system that we have been looking at, there is always a balance. So in your stomach, there's usually a balance between the acidic gastric juices and the protective regenerative nature of the stomach lining. So there's always this delicate balance. So there's X amount of acid, there is the protective lining, the protective nature of the stomach. Once that balance is there, then what happens? Everything flows nicely. When that balance is thrown off, things start happening. Now, let me ask you guys in the chat. Tonight is going to be very interactive. What do acid do? You don't have to be a chemical engineer for this. What does acid do? Let me see it in the chat. So I'm going to keep the chat open here. What does acid do in the body? What do you think acid? What does acid do? Taking my time and we build this thing up, because if we don't have this foundation, it will make the rest of the presentation a little bit hard to understand. So what does acid do in the body? What do you think acid? What comes to your mind? Let me see it in the chat. There's no wrong answers. We're going to take our time. It gives heartburn. It reacts with base or alkali. Okay. All right. All right. Lovely, lovely. We're taking our time. Right. Now let me get a little bit more specific. I love these answers. What does acid do when we are dealing with diseases, when we are dealing with germs? Do you think germs can survive the harsh environment of acid or not? That is the question on the floor tonight. So what does acid do when it comes to germs? What does acid do? Do you think germs can survive acid? Think about battery acid. When you throw battery acid on something, it burns through it. Correct, Judy. Correct, Coach Judy. Germs typically cannot survive acid. Right. Okay. Now that being said, this has to be established. The parts of the body that interact with the outside world, this is a very important point. The parts of the body, what did I say? That interacts with the outside world tend to be acidic. So think your skin. The pH of your skin would be acidic. Your mouth would be acidic. Your digestive tract, especially the stomach, would be acidic. Your openings, so like the anal opening, the vaginal opening for males, the penile opening, these will tend to be acidic. Ears, nose, these areas will tend to be acidic. Why? Because these are the first point of contact with the outside world. As such, as a barrier, as a shield, as a wall of defense, the Lord make these parts to be acidic. So they will kill off any intruders before they reach into the more delicate parts of the body. We're taking our time tonight. We're taking our time. First line of defense. Have some notes here. I gotta keep them on hand because I don't want to miss any points. Right. Now, that being said, when you have acid reflux, where do you normally feel the burning? Is it in this area here, in the throat area, or is it in the stomach area? If you're dealing with acid reflux, where do you normally feel the burning? Is it in this throat area here, or is it in the stomach area? Where do you normally feel the burning? Right, so you normally feel the burning in the esophagus, right? And let me just take my time now and bring back up some more pictures here so we can have a visual of what we are working with. Right. So this is our visual. So typically, persons who have acid reflux will typically start to feel it in this area. You'll feel in your throat, you have like a burning sensation. Right? Now, if this stomach, let me ask a different question first. Do you know, or let me ask it this way, who normally experience acid reflux? Older persons, we're taking 30 and greater, or babies, adolescents, who normally experience acid reflux? Older persons, or babies, teenagers, adolescents, older persons. Okay, question on the floor. Does that mean that children do not have acidic stomach? Obviously not. Because we just said that the first line of defense, the passages to the outside wall will be acidic for a prevention of the outside bacteria, viruses, and so forth. So if acid reflux normally occurs at the older age, but every single person has acid in their stomach, why is this? We're going to take our time and we're going to get into it. So, the stomach. How much of you have ever heard about the pH scale? Acid, alkaline, and neutral. Now, if you haven't heard about it, that's fine. That's why we are here tonight. Acid tends to be hot, burning, etc. Neutral pH is like water. Alkaline is there to help to buffer acid. Now, of all of these, which do you think diseases will thrive the most in? An acidic environment, let me be more specific. Which do you think bacteria, viruses, outside pollutants would thrive the most in? A place that is acidic or a place that is alkaline? I'll answer it in the chat. Now, I know this almost seems somewhat elementary, but I'm going to take my time because I'm going to assume I always teach these as I'm teaching an 8-year-old so that it can be easy to understand. The goal is not to impress you with the knowledge. The goal is to impress upon you the information for change. Right. That's right, Natasha. So, diseases will tend to thrive in an alkaline environment. Sorry, Natasha, that is alkaline. So, diseases will tend to thrive over here because there's nothing to keep them from coming. Remember, we said that the surfaces that are exposed to the wall tend to be acidic for the purpose of killing off diseases. So if the environment becomes alkaline, then the diseases can now thrive, replenish, and grow. Now, I know you have heard a lot of things thrown on the internet that the acidic body is a breeding ground for diseases. Be very careful of everything that you hear and read on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Let us just use basic knowledge. We said that acid kills off bacteria, kills off viruses. We said that alkaline helps these to thrive. So, if the environment is acidic, especially entrance areas, then you will find that a lot of diseases can thrive there. If the environment is alkaline, diseases can thrive there. Now, the stomach is acidic by nature. We also concluded that children, younger persons don't tend to have acid reflux. It happens as an older disease. Okay. Now, that being said, let us look at some of the benefits of having an acidic stomach. And these are some of the benefits. This is going to play a very crucial part as we look into tonight. Now, the first thing is the breaking down of protein. So you always hear the word protein thrown around. Proteins are things like our peas, our fresh items. These provide protein. Now, what are also protein? Protein are also building blocks of the body. So your muscles, your tissues, all of these are made from proteins. So your liver, proteins, muscles, proteins, any sort of muscle tissue on your body, whether it is external as the muscle you see or internal as the liver, the organs, these are made from proteins. So when proteins get broken down, they need an acidic environment to pull them apart into amino acids, right? For those of you in the peptide space, that is exactly what the peptides are. Little chains, little blocks of proteins, right? Lovely. Now, proteins also help to strengthen the immune system. So if you are eating proteins and these proteins are getting broken down and assimilated, what goes up? Your immune system, your immune response. Now, if you're eating proteins, but these proteins are not getting broken down, you're going to have a compromised immune system. Number two, the acid in your stomach is responsible for killing harmful germs. Now, a stomach acid is around 1.5 to 3.5. And this destroys all of the bacteria, viruses, parasites, and yeast that would enter your body. Right, first line of defense. What else does stomach acid do? Stomach acid improves mineral absorption. We have spoken quite extensively on the importance of micronutrients, of which minerals fall into that category. Now, here are some of the minerals that get absorbed when the stomach acid is at its correct intensity. Calcium. My lady is over 50. What is one of the diseases that attack you thereafter? Osteoporosis, weakening of the bones. What is the bones made from? Calcium. So you could be eating, but you're not absorbing, and so your calcium goes down, your bones become weak. Magnesium, also great for helping with the nerve functions, helping with relaxing the muscles. Zinc, very powerful immune system booster. So you have twofold. You have the immune system killing off the first line of defense. Then you have the immune system boosting with the proteins being absorbed. Then you have things like zinc, which boost the immune system. When COVID was around, you used to hear a lot about the zinc being pushed. So stomach acid helps with the absorption, not just the breakdown, but the absorption of these minerals. Because it's one thing to break them down, it's a different thing to absorb them. Right. Now, guess what else stomach acid breaks down? Iron. So you're eating the callaloo, you're eating the bhaji. In some of your cases, you may be taking the iron supplements, but every time you go, your iron numbers are still low. Look at the gut. The gut is where the iron is absorbed. If the stomach acid is not rich enough, you are not going to absorb any iron, even though you're eating it. Right. We're taking our time. It also, stomach acid we're talking about, helps with the absorption of vitamin B12, very big one. The B vitamins, B12 specifically, is responsible for energy. Could it be possible that you are feeling low on energy, but when you look at your chart, you're eating properly, eating on time, you're eating on schedule, but you still feel low on energy? Could it be possible that you are consuming the vitamin B12, whether through food or supplementation, but the body is not absorbing it? If the stomach acid is off, if the stomach acid is too alkaline, if the stomach acid is not strong enough, saying it in three different ways, then all of that B12 just pass right out. We're taking our time. Stomach acid also signals the rest of digestion. When acidic food enters the small intestines, it triggers hormones that stimulate pancreatic digestive enzymes, bile, and also the proper digestion of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. That means that if this food is not properly digested in the stomach, then it is not going to be absorbed when it moves down to the small intestines where a lot of the absorption actually takes place. So the teeth does the mechanical breakdown. The stomach does the chemical breakdown. The absorption of these nutrients, majority of this takes place in the small intestine. So by the time it gets to the small intestines, the body is expecting that it has already been broken into a state that it can be taken into the body. If the stomach acid is weak, then when it gets there, majority of the food is not absorbed. Now let's talk about a very important one. It helps controls the pyloric sphincter. Now, the stomach releases food into the small intestines only, as we said, after it has been properly mixed, acidified, and broken down into chyme. Chyme is just the liquid version of it. Now, when that happens, there's a signal that is sent to the valve. And let me show you the valve, because I said we're going to be jumping between these slides tonight because you have to get this information. It signals that the sphincter valve is open. All right. So it signals, let me just mute everyone. The sphincter valve's open. Now, right here, let me zoom in. There's a little valve called the sphincter valve. And this valve is what opens and closes when digestion happens. So when you eat, the food comes down, the sphincter valves open, of course, because it wants the food to come down. Once the stomach acid, provided that it is at the right intensity, breaks it down and liquefies the food. Then the body says, hey, digestion is finished, let's close this off. Why do you want this to close off? Because there's a lot of acid here, and you don't want the acid to start coming back up into your esophagus, which is where you feel that heartburn, where you feel that burning right here. Now, if the stomach acid is weak, guess what happens? This valve never closes. Guess what else happens? The stomach acid goes where it is not supposed to go. It goes back up into your esophagus, which is why you feel the heartburn. Right. We have to take our time. We have to take our time and build this thing. Lovely. Of course, it supports gut bacteria, and it also may help with small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Lovely. So now we have a working definition and we understand how the system works. Now that we understand how the system works, we are going to look at some of the causes of acid reflux. The main causes, and this is not an extensive list, there are some more here, but we're going to talk about them. Eating too fast or while anxious. Why do you think that is? If you are eating too fast, what happens? The food comes down into your digestive system or into your stomach specifically, improperly broken down, which means the stomach now has to do the work of the teeth. So the teeth should have been crushing the food so that the stomach could break it down chemically. But because you are eating, driving, you only have a 5-minute lunch hour break and you're trying to smash something down quickly so you could get back to work, you now have pieces of food lingering in the stomach. Let's take our time. The stomach acid, instead of breaking down small pieces of food, now has to break down big chunks of food. And as a result, come through. And as a result, come. And as a result, what happens is that you find that the stomach now is working a little bit too hard. The stomach is working a little bit too hard and overworking itself, so to speak. This now does the work of the mouth, and so we have an issue there. Now, additionally, let's go back to the main causes. So that is why eating too fast would cause acid reflux, right? Overeating, even of healthy foods. Why? Same principle applies. What is the law of health? It's called abstemiousness or temperance. What is temperance? Using judiciously that which is good for you and abstaining from that which is bad for you. So even if you use too much of the good thing, you go back to the same case of overworking the stomach. Lovely. Eating meals too close together or late at night. Why? This is the next popular one in the fitness space. Eating every 3 hours. Even sometimes you would hear they tell persons with diabetes to do that. That is a little bit dangerous. Why? If I am working you every 3 hours, if I am never giving you a chance to recover, eventually you are going to burn out. The stomach is where most of the chemical digestion takes place. And if you're feeding it every 3 hours, what is going to happen? The stomach is also going to burn out. The juices are not going to get a chance to replenish. And as such, when you eat the second, third, fourth, five, six meal, the juices are going to be weaker and weaker and weaker. As a result, proper digestion is not going to take place. Poor food combinations, we come into that, and this one was touched a lot. Stress. Now, this is how your system works. For those of you who've been on the last few webinars, we learned that your body is either building or it is breaking down. That's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system, right? Now, it can't do both of them at the same time. So if you are stressed out, you are signaling hormones to deal with stress. If your body is stressed out, do you think your body is going to be focusing on breaking down your foods and providing the necessary juices to do that efficiently? What do you think? Obviously not. If your body is stressed out, and Dr. Dean looked at this last week, do you think your body is going to be focusing on reproduction? If your body is stressed out, do you think your body is going to be focusing on building muscle, burning fat? No. Your body is going to be focusing on holding on to fat because it doesn't know when this situation is going to be resolved. So it's holding fat. Remember, fat is a stored form of energy. Fat is like the money in your ATM, so that when the wallet or your purse runs out, it can feed you cash. Fat feeds you energy in times of distress. When you are stressed, your body don't want to be carrying an extra baby, so reproduction shuts off. Those hormones responsible for reproduction shuts off. When you are stressed, your body don't want to be dealing with breaking down food. It's just dealing with alleviating the cause of the stress in front of you, so all of these shut down. Now, stress could also be linked to eating too fast because that's a stress on the body. It could be linked to being anxious. That's a stress on the body. And all of these is what happens. Now, before I continue, does this make sense? And you could drop your questions in chat, so I'll keep, as they come, you just drop them in chat, I'll answer them at the end. Lovely. So we're making sense with cooking with gas. Now, when you have acid reflux, what is one of the drugs that they give you? Or what do the drugs tend to do? Let me look in the chat now. When you have acid reflux, what do the drugs tend to do? Let me hear in the chat. Come on, we're in the chat. We're in the chat. Right? Omeprazole, right? Correct. Uh-huh. But what do the drugs tend to do? They tend to lower the stomach acid, inhibit acid production. Okay. So we have a problem. Right. We have a problem. We saw that the stomach needs to be acidic to break down proteins, strengthen the immune system, signal the sphincter valve, which is the valve that prevents the acid from going back up into the esophagus, to shut and stay closed. But we are given a drug to reduce the acidity inside of the body. We are given a drug to move the stomach from acidic to neutral and alkaline. What do you think happens to the digestive process in the body when that happens? Exactly. You lose the immune function. You lose the sphincter valve shutting at the right time, because unless the stomach gets the signal to say, hey, we have dumped acid in here, the food has turned into churn, and it is liquid enough to move along, that valve will never close. As a result, what happens? This acid comes back up in your esophagus and you get the heartburn. Which is why children, adolescents do not have, except they have an autoimmune condition, acid reflux. It only happens as you get older. Guess what else happens as you get older? Your body reduces the amount of stomach acid it produces. So the ability of the stomach to produce acid reduces as you get older, which is why you have acid reflux. Now we have a little problem. If we have just uncovered that the stomach needs to be acidic, and we are feeling it with an anti-acid when we have acid reflux, we are just exacerbating the problem. You will get temporary relief, but you will always have this acid issue because you are rewiring the stomach to do what it was not designed to do, and that is to become alkaline. Pause. Lot of information there. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, give me a one in the chat. Pass the water bottle, please. If it makes sense, Billy, continue. If it makes sense, give me a one in the chat. If it doesn't make sense, I'll explain it again. Let me drink my blue waters here. Right. Makes sense. Makes sense, makes sense, makes sense. Excellent. So what you are doing, you are rewiring the system, and you are just causing the problem to continue longer and longer and longer. So then you already know where I'm going to go with this. If kids don't have the problem, if adolescents don't have the problem, and they have a stronger and more concentrated and more consistent production of stomach acid, but they don't have acid reflux, and as you get older, that reduces and you have acid reflux, it means that the problem is not the acid in the stomach. That was the original design of the creator, to make the stomach acidic. The problem is the acid is in the wrong place. Instead of being in the stomach where it should be, the acid is coming up in the esophagus, which is why you get heartburn. So by taking antacids, you are going to make the problem worse. Let's take this thing a step further. What was one of the benefits of acid when it comes to bacteria? It causes bacteria to not be able to replenish or multiply in the stomach. Same thing with viruses, same thing with yeast. And guess what? Your yeast infection is constantly going up. You're suffering with H. pylori. Okay, this is a big one. I got a couple of persons came in the last few weeks with H. pylori. Guess what? Every single person has H. pylori in their stomach. However, go back to our chart. H. pylori cannot thrive when the stomach is acidic. When the stomach is producing enough acid, H. pylori cannot thrive and multiply. On the flip side, when the stomach becomes more alkaline, so you're now throwing in antacids, you're now throwing in these things to reduce the stomach acid, you're eating when you're stressed out, you're always on the rush, you have a lot going on in your life, the stomach is not doing what it should, H. pylori comes out of remission and it multiplies. H. pylori can also lead to stomach cancer. Bacteria in the digestive tract can lead to oesophageal cancers. So now we're beginning to see how this thing works. This is why Messenger said that drugs never cure the disease. For a time, it would make it appear that the disease has been subsided, only to reappear in a next place or form later on in your life. Next place or form, yeast infection. Next place or form, H. pylori. Next case or form, stomach acid being too low. Next case or form, stomach cancer. We're taking our time. We're building this thing. Lovely. So now that we have a working definition, it means when you have acid reflux, you have to put the system back into balance. Put in the chat, what should the stomach be? Acidic or alkaline? Put it in the chat. I gotta make sure you're following me. What should the stomach be? I'm saying the same thing over and over, but repetition is the key of learning. Repetition helps it to stick. Acid or alkaline? I'm waiting for you to put it in the chat. That is correct. If you put it in the right, that's right. The stomach should be acidic. So, how do we fix acid reflux? We put the stomach where it should be, as an acidic environment. Supplement. Now we're going to talk. Before we actually get to supplement, we are going to look at some of the principles that will help with this. Now, let's look at some of these. Avoid drinking with meals. Now you're going to see how all of this thing that is written in the counsels and diet comes into play. You know, we tend to wash down the food. If you're suffering with acid reflux, if you are suffering acid reflux, let me just pull the door close. Right? Okay? If you are suffering acid reflux and you drink water, drink juices while you are eating, what is water on this chart? Pure water, neutral. What happens to the acid in your stomach when you drink water? It becomes less acidic and more towards the alkaline neutral state. What happens when that occurs? Then you do not have the protection of the stomach. Then you do not have the foods breaking down. Then you do not have the proteins being absorbed. You do not have the protection against bacteria against H. pylori and against all of these. Your acidic situation increases. Same thing happens with juice. All right, we're taking our time. We gotta take our time. Eh? We have a lot here tonight, so we're taking our time. Avoid extreme hot or cold foods and drinks. Why? Because when you eat these foods, hot or cold, your body will, if it is too cold, it will warm it back up to a temperature that the body can actually start working. So certain enzymes can only be activated when the body is at the right temperature. When the food in the stomach, let's be more specific, is at the right temperature. So when you drink a ice cold juice, your body does not get the opportunity to activate these enzymes until it warms back up. Now, what is all of this doing? Was your stomach designed to warm food? Was your stomach designed as a microwave? It was not. So now your stomach doing things that it was not originally designed to do. All of these things over years of constant abuse will lead to all of these stomach issues. So now your stomach working on a task that it was not originally designed to do. The same thing happens when you eat food too hot. Your body has to cool it down to a stage where the enzymes can be activated to break down and start the digestion process. All right, next one. Keeping meal variety simple, 2 to 3 kinds of food. Now, if you guys would have been on the nutrition call, you know that we talk about the 3 main macronutrients that should be in your food. So, proteins, carbohydrates, fruits, or vegetables. Now, what this does, it's very simple. When you prepare foods in a very simple manner, it makes the work of the stomach become a lot easier. So now it doesn't have to cut through the grease, cut through the mess before it gets to the nutrients. It could go straight to the nutrients and start working. If you notice, the purpose of all of this is to cause the stomach to not overwork. Because if the stomach is constantly overworking, it becomes less efficient. Just like if you start overworking, you become stressed out and you become less efficient at your tasks. So when you prepare foods in a simpler manner, it make it easy for the body to absorb it. It make it easy for the stomach to break it down, and so you'll cause all of these situations and conditions to go away. Now, there are some things that are in our food that could even further aggravate this problem. Vinegar. What is vinegar? Vinegar causes fermentation and blood impurities. Now, again, that is why I always caution persons, be very careful of what you watch on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and the likes. Big thing going around right now is apple cider vinegar for weight loss. Yes, apple cider vinegar could help with weight loss, but it would also help with stomach issues. It would also help to further aggravate your stomach problems. What does alcohol do to food? It preserves it. What do you want the food to do in your stomach? To break down, not to be preserved. So when you take alcohol, when you use vinegar and these things with your food, what you are in essence doing, you are preserving the food and not causing the food to break down. And you're having these foods petrify or rot in your stomach, which cause a whole list of other issues. When these happen, it also causes things like impure blood. And when impure blood happens, if every organ in the body receives blood, that means impurity goes to every organ, every tissue, every cell in the body. Fried foods slows digestion. We look at the eat, enjoy wholesome foods, adjust the preparation, and specifically what fried foods does, they change how foods react in your body. So when you deep fried food, it changes how the food reacts in your body. It also slows the digestion. And we want that signal to be sent so that it can close the sphincter valve. So if you're eating high fried foods, what is going to happen? You're going to slow the digestion, you're going to delay that sphincter valve being closed, and you're also going to keep that opening enough for stomach acid to start going back up into your digestive, into your esophagus. Spicy or irritants, of course, this will damage the stomach lining. Lovely, we're taking our time. Now there are some foods, again, look, we have some of them here. I'll just jump over this. Okay, let's continue on. Tight belt or closed. Going back to the Instagram and TikTok again. So they want to get the stomach flat, so they put on these sweat belts. Now, if your stomach is already, especially if you're carrying around some extra blessings, if you carry around extra blessings, and Dr. Dian would have alluded to this in the last few webinars, what happens? The organs now start pressing against each other. So they don't have that free space in there. They are pressing against each other. And then when you put on one of these tight belts, these sweat belts, you are further pressing the organs against each other. What this is going to do, if your stomach is a muscle, it has an elastic feature. The food, as you see right in this diagram here, normally settles to the bottom. You know why the food settles to the bottom? So you could stay away from the sphincter valves and come back up into your throat. But if you take this and you squeeze it, if you take a bag with water and squeeze it, what happens to the water inside? The level goes up. It puts it closer to the sphincter valves. Acid comes back up into your esophagus. The sphincter valves already staying open. You're pushing the acid right back up here. Are you guys beginning to see how all of this is connected? The same thing happens with lying down after eating. So when you lie down after eating, you're changing the shape of this from being upright to being flat. What happens to the water? It starts to, or the churn, the correct terminology, the churn, the acid starts to move closer to this area and you start to have things like acid reflux, which is why you don't eat too late in the night. Why? Because your body doesn't have the need for that energy. So the digestive system tends to start shutting down in the night. So if the digestive system is shutting down, the acid in the stomach is not being produced as much, the stomach activity of breaking down is not happening as frequently, then what happens? You are dumping a bunch of food in there, you have a reduced digestion effect, and so most of that food is going to sit here, and when you lie down, it comes right back up here, which is why you have acid reflux when you lie down in the night. We're taking our time, we're building. Right. Excess weight, we mentioned. Pregnancy related acid reflux, that is just something that happens during pregnancy, which is why when you are pregnant, that is when you want to be most cautious about what you eat. I heard a doctor tell a pregnant lady, just eat because you're feeling too. To me, I find that was, I would use the more politically correct term. That was unwise advice. Unwise advice. Why? Number one, your digestive system is not working for two. It means it's working overtime. Number two, you are feeding a newborn baby. What do you want to feed a newborn baby? The highest quality food or processed, man-made, chemically engineered, GMO loaded foods? Obviously, the first one. So that is unwise in all aspects. Smoking, of course, that goes without saying. Vigorous exercise after meals. Your body operates on energy. When you are exercising, where does the energy go to? The energy goes to the muscles that are being used during exercise. Where does the energy go away from? The stomach that is digesting the food. So if you engage in vigorous exercise after eating, the digestion process is halted, or for lack of a better word, it is deficient of energy, and so the digestion process takes a longer time. We go back to all of these different issues where when the digestion process takes a longer time, the sphincter valves also take a longer time to close, which means you have a chance of acid going back up into the esophagus. Plus, you're moving around, you're shaking around, definitely going to hit that top wall. Right? If the thing makes sense, put a Y in the chat. Let me look at the chat here. If this makes sense, give me a 1 in the chat. Let me make sure that we are on point. Lovely, lovely. Very good, very good, very good, very good, very good, very good. Excellent, excellent. So, what also happens is that you see some of these autoimmune conditions that you hear of, like, for example, gluten intolerance, the inability to break down certain things. All of these are a result of poor and weak digestive system. Because when the digestive system is not working properly, or when it is overworked, then the body do not have the bacterial protection because the acid in the stomach goes from very strong to very weak. Bacteria start thriving. The body starts triggering a bunch of responses dealing with this increased bacteria in the stomach, which should have not been in the first place had the acid been correct. And so we have autoimmune diseases. We have all of these different things coming to the surface. So let us look at some practical examples. Now, it is at the top of the list. Remove flesh, food, dairy, and eggs. Why? If you have acid reflux, right? If you have acid reflux, most flesh foods, we would all agree by now, are laden with pathogens, are laden with bacteria, are laden with diseases. And this is because the producers of these foods, their goal is profit, not your health. As such, they will do what it takes to make chickens run their normal course to getting it ready in a shorter space of time, which means injecting it with hormones. If you look at some of the conditions where a lot of these meat live, you will not want to live there. But this is the same flesh you're eating. What happens to the food? You are what you eat literally means that when you eat food, the food goes and becomes a part of you. So if the cow, God forbid you eating the swine, which is designed as a scavenger, is eating this kind of food and it is becoming part of their flesh, and you are eating their flesh and it is becoming part of you, and you already have a compromised stomach acid, stomach environment, then it means that you are now becoming a breeding ground for diseases. So that's why we cut this off. Now, postman acid reflux definitely will cut out all the fresh foods right off the bat. The dairy and eggs are the same thing, right? Same environment. The white sugar, the white flour processed foods, again, with the same thing because it causes the stomach to work too hard. White flour is really a chemically engineered process. So for it to become white and that nice soft texture, what happens? They remove all of the good stuff. How much of us have ever heard of the word fiber? What fiber is? Fiber is like the scrubbing brush, when you clean your bathroom sometime. There are some plaque, some things on the wall, some moss that can't just be removed with washing it off. You have to scrub it off, release it from the surface, and then wash it away. When you eat natural foods, whole foods, foods that the Lord created, these are like the scrubbing brush going through your system and scrubbing out, absorbing, binding some of these things that cannot normally be washed out, freeing them and then taking them out the digestive system. With white flour, they remove fiber, which is, of course, the scrubbing brush. So now eating a food that takes away the scrubbing brush, you remove the bran, you remove all of these healthful things. They take just the endosperm, which is the seed, and then they grind that down. The color of it is normally gray. For them to get it white, they have to bleach the flour, which is where you get that white color. And then they would add back in some vitamins in there, mainly synthetic, so your body don't absorb them as much, to try and make it. What is the word on the list? Fortified. Have you seen fortified flour? That is what fortified means. It means that they strip it of everything that the Lord has created it with and put in their own stuff in effort to create the food back. Now, what happens? You don't have the protection of the fiber. You have a bunch of synthetic minerals and vitamins that your body don't really absorb. Then you now have the Frankenstein food, the lab food, that when it breaks down, it spikes your blood sugar levels and your body just goes into a wild havoc. Now, guess what your body tries to do when you have too much of this? Your body tends now to pull calcium to help to alkaline the food. So it helps to change the food because of the effect of the food. It pulls the alkaline, which is calcium from your bones to help to pad the food, so to speak. And so now you have different issues. Right? Lovely. Now, do you know that not eating enough salt, cutting out salt altogether also leads to a very low stomach acid, meaning that low stomach acid production. So your stomach acid will not be as acidic, as strong. When you use salt, we look at this in the high blood pressure webinar, you want to use salt that the Lord made, obviously, because you know exactly what he's doing. So the salt that he makes has anywhere from 64 all the way up to 84 trace minerals. All of these minerals help with the production of different juices, including stomach acid, and it helps the body to absorb and to carry out its functions properly. Guess what table salt has? It has sodium, chloride, and iodine. Sodium on its own raises the blood pressure, which is why, if you look at the Lord's salt, it has sodium, it has chloride, but it also has potassium and magnesium. What does potassium and magnesium do? They help to regulate blood pressure. So he puts everything in there, and this is now our sea salt, our, our pink Himalayan salt, our Union salt, our Celtic salt. All of these have all of this in it. Right? Lovely, lovely, lovely. So let's look at some practices. So the first one, of course, you want to eat and schedule. Now, digestion in your body takes place anywhere, depending on your age, from 3 to 4 hours. If you're eating every 3 hours, what happens? This is how your stomach normally works. Your stomach normally works like this. First in, first digested. Oh, sorry, last in, first digested. So if you eat breakfast in the morning at 7 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock you go and have a snack, what it does with the food that came in the morning that it's still working on, it puts that on pause. And it works on the new food coming in. Then you go and eat at 12 o'clock again. Food is not properly digested. It puts those two on pause that haven't been digested. It works on the 12 o'clock meal. Then I go and have a snack at 1:30, 2:30. It puts the first three on pause. And now what happens when they have all of this backup food? If you want to leave food outside right now is about 30 to 33 degrees Celsius. Your stomach is about 33 to 37 degrees Celsius. If you leave food outside at 33 degrees Celsius, what happens within a day or two? It starts to rotten. That is exactly what happens to the food in your stomach when you are constantly eating. So the food that comes in first, those are in your stomach, and they actually did a test on this where they were tracking the foods, and persons was doing the same thing where they were eating every 3 hours. And so what you found happening is that at dinner time, when they tested the stomach, they had breakfast still sitting in the stomach. Still sitting in the stomach, which means that haven't even passed down to the small intestines. And we know for the food to pass along, a signal must be sent to close the sphincter valve. So you have a weakened or opening sphincter valves, so you have all of this acid going back up. Right? Lovely. Now let's take a look at some of the remedies. Now, the first thing I recommend if you are having issues with acid reflux, is to eat on schedule. You want to set certain meal times to eat. The reason you do this is that your body, your stomach works on a system. Meaning that, okay, it says that, hey, every morning Natasha give me breakfast around 7:30. So around 7:30, which is where I start to feel hungry, your stomach will start producing stomach acid because it's waiting for the food. Let's say Natasha got a call, she had to do a prospecting call, and now she missed that 7:30. You have the stomach acid being dumped, and she eats at 10:30, which her stomach is not accustomed to. When she eats at 10:30, the food comes in, there is not much stomach acid being produced, which means the food is going to sit there. So that's why it is important to eat on schedule. So you know, some of you will have to retrain your body to start eating on schedule. For the first week or so, it might take some time. You might feel a little bit weird in the morning, especially if you're not accustomed to eating breakfast. And if you try and lose weight, you want to make sure to eat breakfast, by the way. It will take some time for you to start getting adjusted to it, but eventually your stomach will follow the pattern and it will start producing the acid when you notice the food is coming down. Right? Of course, you don't want to snack between meals. You could drink water for sure. Digestive walk after meals. What that does, digestive walk means just a simple walk. It is not too high intense. It is just a simple walk that helps to stimulate the digestive juices. Right? So it helps them to flow. Manage stress and emotions. This requires a whole webinar for itself. I am just going to list it here. There have to be actual techniques for you to manage stress, but I'm just going to put it in here as a note. Right? Obviously, you don't want to be eating while you're driving, rushing to eat. It's better for you to skip the meal than to eat in a rush. You get more damage if you eat the food in a rush than if you skip the meal altogether. Right? And of course, that should be adequate levels of vitamin D. Lovely. Now let's look at some actual herbal remedies that you can use. So the first one I'll recommend, this is specifically for older persons. When I say older, I mean 30 or above. It's a supplement called betaine hydrochloride, betaine HCl. Now, what betaine HCl does, it helps the stomach to become more acidic. If you notice, I'm not giving you anything to make your stomach alkaline because that is just going to amplify your problem. So betaine HCl actually helps the stomach with the acid production, more acidic, which means you'll have better protein absorption, better immune system, better defense, less likely of H. pylori occurring if you had it already, and all of these other benefits. Now, there has to be a caveat here. If you have stomach ulcers, you will not use betaine HCl. The reason is the acid has become so concentrated in your stomach and it's not being met with the food to break it down. It starts working on the stomach walls and now you have ulcers developing. So in a case like this, you will use things like aloe vera, you will use flaxseed gel that is also linseed, you would use slippery M, and what these, you would also use CMOS gel. What these do, these create a mucus layer around the stomach and protect the stomach lining, right? So in this case, you will cut out the betaine HCl. If you're just dealing with acid reflux, if you're just dealing with GERD, these ones you could use the betaine HCl. If you happen to have stomach ulcers, you'll cut out the betaine HCl. Let me just put the spelling inside of the chat so you guys can see this. It's spelled like this, betaine HCl. How to take it? You're going to take it with meals. So you take it with meals so that the betaine would stimulate the stomach acid to produce when food is coming in. All right? We have marshmallow root, of course, activated charcoal. These are some things that you could use. And once you do this, you will find that a lot of your issues will go away. So let's just recap. You want to make sure that you eat at set meal times. You're not eating between meals. Now, I know the question coming up. Well, if I eat at set meal times, I'm going to get hungry in between. If you're getting hungry in between, I could tell you emphatically it's the case where you're not eating enough of the right foods. The quickest fix to that is to bump your protein up. So bump your protein up. That will tend to keep you fuller longer. If that is not working as fast as it should, then you could, at the end of each meal, use some healthy fats. So things like your seeds, so that we're talking pumpkin seeds, we're talking chia seeds, we're talking things like our sunflower seeds. You could also use nuts. I would caution you, let me just put a caveat here, to stay away from peanuts. Peanuts have a lot of different issues around them. So stick with things like almond, which is the supreme, a little bit more expensive, um, and all of these other nuts. All right, so use that at the end of your meal. That will tend to keep you fuller longer. Okay, lovely. Avoid the flesh meats, avoid all of those as much as possible. If you have to eat them, then try to keep it as organic as possible. The best thing you can do for most of you is if you can link up with local butchers in your area and get the food directly from them, right? That might be one of the better options. Ideally, you want to just stay away from them. But if you have to, then try to keep it as organic as possible, as much as is possible, right? Of course, you want to also avoid lying down after eating. So don't eat and lie down, as the song says. That will again cause indigestion. Avoid using tight clothes. This is something I must add as well, just like the fibroids. Start to wear long clothes. I'm talking to my ladies now. Why? Because when you keep full clothes that are short, especially those that expose the limbs and the arms, the blood tends to flow to the areas that are warmer. And remember, in the case of stomach acid, you are having an issue where you are having not enough stomach acid. And so, to help with the circulation, to help the blood to flow all throughout the body, if you keep the arms and limbs warmer, you then have a more complete flow and you keep too much of the blood from staying in the trunk area. All right, so let's just put that there. And I think I would have covered, oh, the olive oil, 2 tablespoons before meal. All this helps to stimulate the production of bile, which helps the breakdown of fats. So just help the body to break down fats better. Let me just add this as well. Make sure and chew your foods properly when you're eating. So take your time, chew your foods so that the body can actually break it down properly. All right, let me make sure I've covered everything there, and I'm going to open quickly for questions. All right, let me just pull this up here. Let's just make sure I covered everything. So we talked about, oh, one more thing I have to mention. Try not, as much as possible, to eat fruits and vegetables at the same meal. Fruits tend to break down faster than vegetables. If you eat them at the same meal, you'll have the same situation of one of them just sitting there and petrifying or rotting in the stomach while it waits for the other to digest. So fruit is anything with seed inside. So pumpkin, watermelon, bhaji, not bhaji, avocado. We are talking things like eggplant. There's a name they call it in Trinidad. It slips me right now. Of course, our apples, mangoes, etc. If you're eating fruits, eat fruits at one meal. If you're eating vegetables, eat vegetables at one meal. So vegetables are parts of a plant. So the lettuce, that's the leaf of a plant. We're talking about things like carrots, that's the root of a plant. Stem, that it will be things like celery, parsley, that's the stalk of a plant. So that's the difference between fruits and vegetables. If it have seed inside, it's a fruit. If it doesn't have seed inside, it's a part of a plant, it's a vegetable. So eat your fruits and vegetables away from each other. Right? And oh yes, how could I forget this? Baking powder, baking soda. especially if you have acid reflux. Baking soda and baking powder are alkaline forming. So when you use baking powder and baking soda, it causes your stomach to become more alkaline, as we saw in the chart, which would reduce all the benefits of an acidic stomach. Right, I think we covered everything there. Let me just make sure I have everything. Increased fiber, we talked about that. Chew your food properly. After each meal, take a 15 to 30-minute digestive walk. The time between exercise and workout, we normally recommend, if you have acid reflux, 2 hours. If you don't, hour and a half hour would work fine for you. Talked about this, we talked about that, and perfect. Lovely. So we covered all the bases. Now I'm going to open the floor for questions. If you have questions, you can raise your hand. I'll unmute you. Or if you want to put it in the chat, just drop it in the chat and I'll answer the question. And then once we get that out of the way, then we will be good to go. Right. So any questions in regard to anything we talked about? Are you specifically dealing with acid reflux? You want me to help you with that? Go ahead and ask the questions. Diabetics, by the way, tend to have a higher incidence of acid reflux. Okay, sure. WV, go for it.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good
The
night.
question is, how can I tell if my chest pain is caused by an acid reflux or heart problem?
How can you tell if your chest pain is caused by acid reflux or a heart problem? The simplest test that is testing. That's the easiest way to tell that. So you will obviously have to visit, make sure they do the relevant tests. For the heart pain, you'll probably want to see a cardiologist. And if those tests like the EKG come back all positive, then it's probably not caused by a heart-related issue. It is caused by acid reflux. A next test that you can also do is try some of these remedies that we mentioned. And if the pain goes away, then you know that it was related to a acid reflux or some sort of a stomach issue.
Okay, next question. For example, chronic cough, right? A dry cough or wheezing or any difficulty swallowing related to the stomach acid, and is it entering your airways?
Just repeat the question for me.
For example, my is my chronic dry cough, wheezing, or difficulty, right, swallowing related to the stomach acid entering my airwaves?
Okay. So your dry cough, or sometimes they call a whooping cough, that could be related to a overproduction of the antihistamine. So what I recommend for that one, again, of course, seeking medical attention, um, consult with a healthcare professional first of all. What I recommend for that one is using something that would help with the overproduction of antihistamine. Now, the fastest remedy I could give you, most countries in the Caribbean have it, is stinging nettle. So the leaf of stinging nettle, you make a tea from that, especially in the morning or late at night. Make a tea from that, run that for a couple of days. If that cough goes away, it could be related to an overproduction of antihistamine, which is the hormone that deals with allergies. Right? That's just an immune system response. So if that takes care of that, then you're fine there. Some other herbs that you can add in there as well will be something called mullein. Are you asthmatic, by the way, WV? Let me just allow you to unmute yourself. Are you asthmatic by chance?
No, 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 sir.
Not asthmatic. And how long has
No,
this cough started?
no. It's just a question I'm asking.
Oh, just a question. Okay, okay,
For
oh, okay,
knowledge, yes.
okay, okay, okay. So we're just giving general answers now. Okay, right. Because sometimes that will also change the direction I'm asking. I'm going to answer the question, but let me just give a general answer. So start with something that will lower antihistamine production. That's number one. The other thing is that pay attention to the foods you're eating. Certain foods will trigger this response. Specifically, if you're looking at things like milk, seafood, right? Milk and seafood, these tend to trigger this overproduction of antihistamine. So stay away from shellfish and just make it simple, stay away from the non-kosher foods. So like shrimp, crab, lobster, fish without fins, skins and fins, stay away from those for now. Use the antihistamine, run it for 7 days. If that whooping cough goes away, it is probably allergic response. It's an allergic response, and your body was just overproducing the antihistamine. Now, normally, if it is going down the trachea, which is your windpipe, then you will tend to have more of a choking cough. And in addition to that, something I'll add, does this cough normally happen around eating or it happens away from eating? My guess will be away from eating, but if you're asking a general question, I guess you'll not be able to answer me. But if it happens around eating, then it could also be a case where the valve in the back that is responsible for directing the food down the esophagus as opposed to the windpipe is probably not functioning properly. Quickest fix for that is going to be eating smaller chunks of food, smaller mouthfuls, chewing it properly, and then being very conscious as you swallow. So I give you quite a mouthful there. I hope one of these work for who you asked it on behalf. Lovely, lovely. Let me just look in the chat and see if there are any questions. Could you kindly recap the information about using olive oil before meal? So the olive oil, will take 2 tablespoons of olive oil before meal. That will help specifically with the digestion of fats. Caveat, if you have gallstones, especially from a really serious, where it is actually blocking the bile duct, then this might be something you will not do. But if you don't have any of these, then you will use olive oil. It will just help with the breakdown of fats, and it also helps to stimulate the bile to absorb fats better. Additionally, not related to this, if you have fatty liver, what did I say? If you have fatty liver, you will do this for 7 mornings. First thing in the morning, and then we also talk about the warm water and lemon. You can add the olive oil to this. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, fatty liver. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, your warm lemon juice. Drink that first thing on an empty stomach. That will also help with the resolution of fatty liver, provided that you do the other lifestyle changes. Cool? Awesome. All right. So talking about gas. Any more questions related to what we spoke about tonight? Was the information clear? If the information was clear, give me one in the chat. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat as well, and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. If you're dealing with ulcers, I mentioned, start using things like sea moss gel. I'm giving you all the options, so whichever one you have available, use that. Sea moss gel, flaxseed gel, slippery elm, marshmallow root, and I think I covered everything there with in terms of those types of herbs. Right, those ones. Okay, perfect. Very clear. Lovely. So once you apply these lifestyle changes, my question was okay, no problem. No problem, WV. Got you. Once you apply these lifestyle changes, you're going to find that most of your stomach issues is going to be resolved. And for ladies, this will also translate to your hormonal balance happening. Now, I think Dr. Dian did a very good job at explaining the link between gut health and hormonal balance or lack thereof. So this would also translate to your hormonal balance. It would also translate to helping you navigate and go through menopause a lot easier because your gut health is now in proper check, and this would also resolve most of those issues long term. Good night. What is the first thing I should do to start healing my acid? So, Marina, just to recap, if you do not have stomach ulcers, the first thing I'd recommend is applying lifestyle changes. Eating your foods, making sure if your foods are chewed properly before swallowing. Avoid mixing too much foods. So let's use the typical Sunday lunch. We have pie, we have fried rice. What else we have? Potato salad. Then we have normal green salad. Then we have baked chicken. Then we have some sort of salad dressing over them. That is too much a combination. Your stomach is not able to deal with it. So I would reduce that to just keeping it protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats. So most of your plate will be salads, and I'm talking about fresh green salads, whatever you choose, or fruits. So fruits will be things like steamed pumpkin, things like not bhaji, eggplant. These will be your fruits. Or if you're doing vegetables, it will be bhaji, it will be fresh salad, that sort of stuff. That will be half of the plate. The other quarter of your plate, and this is the easy way to understand it, would be simple carbohydrates. So ground provision, whole grain rice, quinoa. I'm talking for all the foods around. Um, those are the ones just come off the bat. And then your proteins, of course, preferably use your beans. If you do eat meat still, also add beans with your meat because the beans has the fiber in there that will help to take away the unhelpful substances that are in the meat and also the cholesterol, right? Keep it simple to that. Of course, I know you're probably a great cook, so you'll just add whatever little things are needed there to make it palatable, and then you eat that. Avoid things like deep frying, so deep fried fish, deep fried chicken, deep fried eggplant. Avoid those sort of frying, and that will make the food a lot more simple. Now, the next thing you'll be doing, eat at set times. So make sure that you're eating breakfast at the same time, plus or minus an hour. Lunch the same time, dinner the same time. Your heaviest meal should be earlier in the day. So breakfast and lunch, these should be your biggest meals. Your lightest meal should be in the night. You want to eat at least 3 hours before going to bed. So if you go to bed at 10 p.m., which we recommend, your last meal, night meal, should be at about 7 p.m. You should finish eating by 7 p.m. That will be 3 hours. Give your stomach enough time to digest, put on the food, so when you go to sleep, your body just focus on healing. Do not eat and lie down. Do not walk out after exercising, vigorous workout, just a digestive walk. Of course, that we mentioned, that will help with digestion. And once you use these principles, Marina, you would tend to find that the issues will resolve. From there, you could add the things like the betaine 8 cell if you do not have stomach ulcers. This would help with the stomach now beginning to produce enough acid and keeping it in an acidic environment so that the foods can be broken down and utilized properly. Right? Cool? You're most welcome. Lovely, lovely, lovely. We're cooking with gas. All right. Any more questions? I try my best to keep you guys, get you guys out of here by 9. All right. So if you guys have any more questions, I do have a handout on the reversing stomach acid. You can just send an email to support@fitma.com, or you can message us on the Evesham Sda YouTube channel, which I know some of you are watching us on, and I will send you over that handout. For those of you on our email list that normally gets the links to these webinars, I will send this handout out to you tonight when we finish here so that you can have that to reference from. Thank you all for coming on tonight, and we're going to now close it off with a word of prayer. Elder Victoria, are you on? If Elder Victoria, you're on, I'd like to ask you to do the closing prayer for us. If not, then I'll do the closing prayer. Sister Vicky there? All right, she may be engaged. All right, so let's just bow our heads for a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we want to thank you so much, Lord, for the opportunity to be here tonight and for the information that was shared. As we get ready, Lord, to go into the night, help us, Lord, to take the parts out that we can use and begin to experience proper healing so that as our temple becomes more holy, more clean, we can work more in your vineyard. We thank you, Lord, for holding the internet, for helping the presentation to be clear to the audience. And as they go out, help them with the application, help them, Lord, with the information. And as they study different materials, help them, Lord, to gain understanding so that they can improve their health and live a fuller and healthier life for your service. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, everyone, have yourselves a great night. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, the replay for this is available on the Evesham Sda YouTube channel. That will be, let me just post the link in the chat again so that you guys can have it there. And all of the other webinars that we have done will be available there. So I'm just going to post the link in the YouTube channel. Make sure that you save that. Share it with a friend. Every time you come on here, bring a friend tonight. The link is in the chat. Bring a friend tonight. Bring a friend so that they can also gain the benefits from it. Watch this, rewatch it. When you're driving to work, when you're sitting down, you don't have anything to do, put it on. When you're cooking in the kitchen, put on the replays because the repetition of this information is really going to help you to assimilate it and, more importantly, make the changes that are needed to improve your health and reverse disease. Remember, disease never comes without a cause. Just like that, acid reflux never came without a cause. We looked at the causes and Once you apply these into your life, you will get the effect, which is a healthier body. Lesian, great having you for the first time. I did enjoy the lecture. Great having you. We are here every single Sunday night at 7:30. And I have you now on. I'll send out the link for you so that you can be part of it and have yourselves a great night. Oh, one more thing I'll mention to you. I didn't mention it, but you guys know I'm big on that. Before you start any sort of disease protocol or reversal, always start with a cleanse, right? So you cleanse your bowels out, you cleanse your body out, and then you start this protocol. I didn't mention it here, but I know I mentioned that quite a lot in all of your lectures. So always start with a cleanse. That could be the drink to shrink, that could be the 7-day cleanse, or it could be your local herbs like castor oil, senna leaves. These will help to flush your system out. So when you apply everything else, it works better. Anyways, you guys take care. Have yourselves a great night. Look forward to seeing you next Sunday, please the Lord. Until then, God bless on behalf of the Evesham Sda Church and Elder Maxon. We are pleased to have you all here, and we will see you guys